And okay, just a moment. We're going to share the screen. There we go. And before anything else, I'm gonna make sure to change my status. Okay. Hopefully you don't hear my Discord pinging me. But yeah, so is everything visible? Yes?
I don't see it.
No, no, I can see it.
Is it visible now? Should
No,
be.
no, I can't see it. Can you see it, guys?
No, I can't. I just see Max has started screen sharing, but nothing.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, now we can see it.
That's right.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so as mentioned previously, we're not gonna go full slide for this because I usually like to have a bit of a tracker of the left side so that I can keep sense of what's going on. For anyone new here, I don't think there is actually. Let me check. Is there anyone new today? No, there's just the general folks here. No, no, there's some new ones. So hello for anyone who is new to this study circle. Let me introduce you real quick to what we do here and for what reason. My name is Maxim. My goal here is to provide a bit of more of a scientific context to a lot of the stuff you do here in Tantric Yoga. Myself, I am still in the very beginning stages of meditation. I'm currently trying to find my own path in what I do and how I do it. But this group has been very helpful for me, and that a lot of the stuff discussed here really has a bit of an impact. And my main purpose here is to show you how this reflects in a more scientific light, since that is kind of my area of expertise and also the main method by which I think. Hopefully, you'll find it entertaining and interesting to look at this stuff just as much as I do. If not, please tell me any comments or questions. I will try to answer them as possible. Thankfully, today the topic is quite straightforward. There should not be any complexities in the material outside of the basics of biology. So let's go through the agenda. You have some of the basic concepts that we'll be looking at. There's going to be a handful of case studies, and then we're going to link these case studies and the stuff discussed in them to the specific asanas that we might look into. And obviously, by the end, there's a conclusion, as well as some of the sources. So before we begin talking about the case studies, a few things that we need to define ahead of time. So in terms of physiology, we have different, let's say, levels of neural connectivity in our body and how we control these things. So every nerve in our body serves a bit of a different function. You have many different kinds and many different layers of control. So for instance, in this diagram here, you can see that it's a bit simplified, but it's surprisingly effective at translating this. So if we have the central nervous system, which is mostly our brain, we can think, we can feel, but generally speaking, the brain itself doesn't have really any pain receptors. It's generally what's around us. The part here that matters a lot is the parasympathetic, which is mostly involuntary, which is what most people are concerned about and have a lot of issues. With a muscle, you can move your position. With a brain, you can think about it. But with parasympathetic, you just kind of have to let it go. And it involves things like your bowels, a lot of your hormonal things, as some of the local inflammations even can be technically parasympathetic, which is where asanas comes in and potentially can help you. In neuroscience, there's also different layers of perception. This matters because in asanas, as well as general yogic traditions, it is a very good and important thing to be self-conscious of yourself and what you do. And the different layers of an inception, or in this case, just general perception, thus the wordception, are relevant. Something to mind is that we are mostly going to focus on proprioception and a little bit of interoception, but that one is questionable. But basically, we are looking at inside of our bodies and what our bodies are telling us to explain their own position. For instance, if your bones ache, it could be that you have osteoporosis. But the most likely cases is just a temperature change, or alternatively, you have to check if there's a storm coming. Something really funny that most people don't know is that when you're old, you can actually tell when the storm's coming because there's a change in barometers. So you can actually feel it in your bones. It's a very strange phenomenon, but it actually does work that way. Endocrinology, this part is goes back to what I said earlier about your hormones and how they influence each other to then create a bit of a sense of communication in your body. People don't really understand this, and frankly speaking, medicine kind of barely understands this. But the basics is that when you do yoga, your entire body calms down, and you need to do this through many different axes, including this one. Essentially, if you can calm down your breath, your body will soon follow with the lower activity of your heart, with the lower activity of your intestines, some of the stuff involving uh, testosterone and things of that nature. It's all interlinked, and this is just one of the many aspects of it, which is the pituitary gland. But we're not going to look into it too much because it's not super relevant. And of course, the actual main thing, which is the agency of boosting your own confidence and build up of this practice. This is something that a lot of people that struggle to go to the gym, for instance, have, where the consistency and repetition of your effect and reinforces the stability that it provides. So basically, unlike carpal tunnel syndrome, where if you click too much, you're going to have a bit of a problem in your hand, here, the more you do asanas and different kinds of meditation, the more likely it is that you develop a calmer and more consistent self, because by considerably investing in this practice, the practice makes you feel better about practicing it, which is both psychological and physiological. So let's go into some of the case studies. So strangely enough, there are several kinds of case studies that we'll be discussing today, and all of them have essentially looked at and explained what you may already know, because as you are practitioners, you've already investigated some of these effects. However, one thing is worth mentioning is that despite you potentially already knowing some of these effects and already seeing them, having the consistency and support from science and also just general public having similar effects definitely helps. So for instance, this case study in particular is related to a work balance wellness. So investing into things like yoga traditions and being able to meditate allows these people to handle stress and work better, which in turn enables them to live better and have more fulfilling lives. This sounds like a small thing, but if you work on a stressful job for 10 years, it starts to grate on your body. And this is one of the few ways you have with very low investment to kind of address the problem, if you cannot quit the job at least. Another one is that the health benefits don't go just to your heart rate, but also to the flexibility of your joints and your neuroplasticity. These things work in a different way. One of the common problems with older patients is that they hit problems related to dementia and Parkinson's. We don't know what causes Parkinson's very, very well. but we do have a strong correlation as things like dementia are related to a lack of mental practice and engagement. So things like yoga actually engage the mental activities to the point where not only can you conserve some of your neuroplasticity that you can remember as a young lad or a young gal in your body, but you can also actively make use of this. And it also translates into your body long term. Cortisol is another one that's very interesting to know. Cortisol is something that I would develop if I pet my cat, a creature that I love dearly, but also many other people own pets. And similarly, you have something here. When you invest into things like cortisol, it not only helps you just feel better about your body, but it also surprisingly has some autoregulation activity in, again, your body, and the ability to engage in it helps sustain this activity. Now, obviously, there's a limit to cortisol. If I recall correctly, enough cortisol will just put you to sleep, but there are very strong benefits of, again, engaging in an activity such as this. And the final case study is that, sorry, uh, there are very strong correlations between yoga and just a general joint and muscle healthiness. But that's kind of something you expect. If you engage in physical activities, you will see a bit of a boost in your physical wellness. The difference is that people kind of underestimate just how much this helps, just a little bit. Like if people go to the gym, for instance, they obviously expect performance boosts and things of that nature. The thing is, you don't necessarily need to go that hard. Especially in gym, there's so many different ways of injuring yourself. And if you're considerably older, there are definitely activities you cannot perform. I haven't seen an 80-year-old man bench press 200 pounds. I'll be very surprised if that actually happens at some point. So this is one of the few ways you can engage your body without really pushing yourself to the point where you risk tearing a ligament. And this has been shown to be the case. So let's just go and link some things to each other. For instance, here we have the spinal extension and the sympathetic spike. Essentially, when you decompress your spine or when you like flex yourself, for instance, right now I'm a little bit hunched because that's a bad habit of mine. If I decompress and start to walk around, actually do some exercises, this will relax my body. In fact, that's one of the main ways why if you work at a desk and you overwork yourself, standing up, walking around, waving out your arms will help. And asanas, as well as general meditation and yogic traditions, engage that same mechanism, but in a more structured way. There's also some obvious concepts related to the quadriceps, and quadriceps, if I recall correctly, are part of your arm, and as well as oh my god, sorry, I'm just thinking about something else entirely. Uh, there are ways of engaging your lower body as well. Now, one of the things I want to mention here real quick, when it comes to your lower body, and this part matters a lot, and I have, for instance, my father to thank me of this realization. Most people suffer from back pain, not necessarily because of bad posturing, although that definitely doesn't help. Most people suffer from back pain because they don't engage a lot of their lower body muscles, especially around the spine. So, a lot of the asanas and yogic positions help alleviate that part in such a powerful way that you will thank the Lord that by the age of 50, you just have a bit of a buzz rather than an absolutely monstrous amount of pain. I've been to a pain clinic. I know what these people experience, and I strongly recommend against it. Now, the idea of focusing which was something we discussed earlier, and how that focus translates into stimuli and thus reinforcing not only your perception of yourself, your environment, and also long-term mental health. This is just a more specific way of doing it, where you use the focus of your environment to really zone in on how your mind operates and works. You can get into a flow zone a little bit, assuming you're good enough at meditation. And some people here want that. Some people just want to have absolute peace of mind. But I strongly recommend playing with this a little bit, because having a bit more control over when and how you focus on things can really make a big difference. And obviously, the cervical reflection rays firing. But okay, a lot of words jumbled here. But the point here is that if you engage your upper body as well as your lower body, like the shoulder stand, for instance, the expansion of your blood vessels and the uh, better handling of your blood pressure can essentially help benefit your health in many different ways. One of the things in particular that a lot of people here may be familiar with is that when you stand up very, let's say, brusquely, you may feel a little bit lightheaded. Sometimes you can even lose vision. I have that problem a lot, at least when I used to, when I was low on iron. And that's not just because of oxygen deprivation, but it's also specifically because of blood pressure and how our body has to be trained to handle different positions and different levels of blood pressure in different areas of your body. Not something you think of every day. And again, asanas can help with that, so that you don't have this vulnerability when you stand up and suddenly you feel like collapsing, which again, no one really likes that. And obviously, the ability to keep engaging in the parasympathetic system on a low level, where this becomes a ritual inconsistency, it helps also regulate your general body and specifically some of the cycles within it. Uh, I'm not going to go into the details of this now, but essentially, there is a lot of theories around what kind of cycles in our bodies matter. Biohackers all over the world try to change this, try to address it, but the reality is consistency is the law. The more you do something in a very consistent and powerful way, the easier not only does it become, but the more your body handles it better over time. And this again is plays into this more and more. So let's go into the conclusions. Breathing and controlled regulation helps you not only meditate, but also helps you lower your blood pressure, helps you engage your parasympathetic symptoms, and generally calm down. The introspection and meditation in of itself helps engage your mind in a different way that is necessary for long-term health. Uh, the cortisol engagement loops not only help you feel good about yourself and your environment, but unironically help your body restore themselves. The ideas of yogic traditions and yoga itself and tantra stuff has shown in practice to be very effective therapy. Not only therapy, but just in generally practice that, if consistently done, can help you in the long term. And obviously, when you combine all of this into a functional part of your life with very little stress involved, you get an effective and consistent method by which you can just keep things going for well and long. Just make sure to be consistent about it. That's it. I'm not going to reiterate that point one more time. Finally, we have the references here. And that is the end of the slides. I made this very short today, in most part because the material itself is pretty straightforward. a lot of the scientific knowledge behind body health, engaging in physical and mental activities are considered to be well understood. The problem comes in the details of exactly what's going on and how, and if something goes wrong, how to cure it. However, if you ask anyone around the world, what would you do to stay healthy or to be good about yourself or to live 100 years? Basically, all what asanas do is precisely that same thing. It's just that some people around the world engage with these activities slightly differently. They're not called meditation, sometimes they're called daily tasks, sometimes they're called daily rituals, sometimes it's about praying, sometimes it's about doing very light exercise at the gym or at home. But a consistency and ability to format all of this is unique to specifically this culture. And that's why I feel like it's very important to engage with it with seriousness and also in a way that allows you to develop your own skills in a way that's unique to you. Because a lot of these rules are set up in a general way, but obviously your unique case is what finally dictates what exactly can you do from day to day. And yeah, I think that is all that I need to say. From here on out, it's open discussion. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. But I warn you, you may not want to hear the answer if you ask a question that is a bit too scientifically minded.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Very resourceful, concise, to the point. My question is on a practical side. Do you have experience with asanas? What? Because you seem to be giving advice, especially towards the end.
Actually, surprisingly, I kind of do, but not in a way you would expect. I used to do karate as a kid and as a teenager as well. I never took karate seriously, but my teacher, I think, wasn't exactly Russian, but could speak Russian. And what we did every time before and after intensive training is a form of meditation. And not only meditation, but a very specific kind of a uh, meditation that are very close to asanas, actually, where the goal was to control the breath. It was to stretch in a very specific and controlled manner. And the difficulty came in coordination and stability, not from the intensity of the hits or the strength of your body. It was just a method of readying the body and then calming down the body after the training. And believe it or not, that made all the difference because that's precisely why everyone in my dojo at the point felt amazing before and after training, despite the intensity of it for like 1 hour. Punching someone is definitely not easy. And even though we were young, it was still very intense. So I would definitely consider that to be a good inspiration, although not exactly the same as what kirtans really are, as well as asanas.
In other words, you have a similar experience with doing some kind of martial arts or contemplative kind of movement, and it seemed to have had some cognitive, phenomenological impact on you, but not per se doing the asanas.
Yeah,
Is that
precisely.
right?
It's not just cognitive; it was physical. Because without these things, you could get very injured very quickly, and the toll on your body has to be handled one way or another. So this is one of the very common ways of handling it. As I mentioned, in every culture, it's done a little bit differently. This is just happens to be a very specific way done in India, but the fundamentals they're almost everywhere. They're just introduced in a slightly different manner.
Max, if I may, what kind of martial art was this?
Yeah, it was karate, like the normal Japanese stuff. For the record, I was always a white belt because I never did the dances or the presentations necessary to do or upgrade the belt. I just wanted to fight. That was all I did, and that's why I was always a white belt because it was about punching. It wasn't about this weird exercise where you have to basically dance in a specific way to show that you mastered a specific move. But why not? Why not just enjoy the fighting when you can? That was kind of my thing when I was in a teenager. And honestly, I'm very grateful for the experience. It made me learn quite a few things.
Can I share something
Yeah, sure.
quickly? So I signed up my son for martial arts class about now 3 months. He's been going. It's a Russian Sistema. There is a club in Toronto, and they focus more not on actually physical aspects of martial arts, but more on working with the body, how to relax your body, how to become more fluid, so to speak, how to listen to your body, and also focus on how to punch. So the punch is very different from regular punches. So basically, you have to punch in a relaxed way, but you apply the pressure just before you hit the target. And actually, one time, my son practiced with me. He's like, "Hey, can I punch you, like, in the shoulder, like in my deltoid muscle?" And man, like, like he was like 11, and the punch I felt in my bone, like it went through, So I was like, bloody hell, So like, yeah. So, but he likes it. He likes it, and the fact that the teacher is great. And they always, like, after the class, like in your example, they always sit and talk about this. He gives like a little pep talk, about this and that, mindfulness and stuff like that, which is like, I think it's very helpful. And he likes it, actually. So good example about the martial arts,
Yeah,
especially when you have of energy.
that is very similar to my experience. They're talking instead of breathing, but same thing, really. It's a very good exercise, and I definitely encourage it. Let's put it this way: it's good to use that kind of knowledge, especially when you're young and you're growing. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can obviously end it here and go to sleep like good little citizens. No? All right. Normal. You can turn off the recording and we can go since there's not many questions left for our discussion.